I used to beat myself up for feeling lazy after work until I understood this. Let's talk about the paralysis that kicks in when suddenly it's time to work on your dreams. I used to have long days at the office where I'd skip meals, I'd have breakfast really late, I would feel unproductive during the day, therefore make up for all the lack of productivity in the evening, end up finishing actual work super late, still have to catch up on my workout for the day, cook some dinner, and by the time all of that was done, I still had to do something about content creation. I finally wanted to start pushing past that tired feeling, but it's hard because you're tired. So you watching this video, I know you're doing what you have to do to actually build a life that you want. But I also know that you have this big dream inside of you that you want to pursue. But day after day, you keep letting your feelings and you keep letting your tiredness get in the way. We're going to change that today. Now, despite these exact feelings, I felt them too. Back when I was working almost 12 to 14 hour days, I still made the time to build my YouTube channel. It was hard. There were days I didn't do anything. There were days I just rotted on the bed, on the sofa, whatever it was. So I want to show you what's actually happening in your brain after these long, tough days. Now, I learned something about willpower which actually shook me because I didn't realize willpower was a limited resource. It was a finite resource that we can't just generate and rely on. And it works very much like a muscle. The more times you use it, the more times it actually becomes tired. Researchers found that people who had to resist eating cookies earlier in the day actually gave up much faster and much easier when they were doing challenging puzzles later on in the day compared to people who didn't have to resist the cookie temptation earlier on. And think about that in terms of your last tough day at work. By 6 p.m., it's been a full day of back-to-back meetings, constant decision-making, constant people pulling on your time. It could get to a point where even choosing what you want to eat for dinner just feels super overwhelming. And that's not laziness or tiredness. It's your brain actually physically feeling the effects of decision fatigue and a depleted willpower. And on top of that, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that's responsible for actual decision-making skills, the one that gets tired, it actually loses glucose throughout the day as you make those decisions. And I remember that. I would remember having these longer days when I had my full-time corporate job and I'd come home and I knew I wanted to work on my YouTube channel that day. But in the evening after work, my brain would feel like mush. And not only would my brain feel like mush, I would actually beat myself up over the mush feeling. And it's when I learned these things about decision fatigue and your brain actually needing glucose to be able to make decisions without feeling mush is when I realized I needed to change my approach to working rather than being myself and calling myself lazy. The fact of the matter is there was 3 main things that used to really drain me of energy. The first thing was those decision-making moments. Your mental energy is depleted from literally every decision you have to make. From prioritizing your tasks at the beginning of the day to managing your stakeholders, managing your team, talking to people, having to manage your calendar. There was also context switching. So that is a massive drainer of energy, even with your general day-to-day productivity, because research literally shows that by switching topics, you're actually using up 40% more energy than by just staying and focusing on one thing. And also, let's just not forget about the emotional labor of your day-to-day life. Managing your workplace relationships, any kind of emotional connection or relationship, and maintaining professionalism all day takes so much energy. So instead of trying to just power through with willpower and also just being heavily critical of yourself, you need to work better with your own brain's natural energy pattern. That's what I started to do. Also, let's layer on the fact that as women, we have different needs in terms of our energy requirements and energy management. So understanding how to work with that was the key to working on my dreams when I was tired. So the first thing I did was try and kind of understand my energy and then align it to my week. To understand your energy, just do a little bit of an audit. You can have a normal week and just write down maybe the things, the activities that make you feel drained, how you feel when you do feel drained, and how and what kind of tasks pull you out of that energy depletion. You're then able to map low energy, medium energy, and high energy, maybe to certain activities, certain locations, to certain routines or consequences, to certain routines or sequences of actions that you then know either deplete or add energy into your life. And this will allow you to create a bit of an energy chart for yourself and then create a calendar based off of that. So for example, what I realized for me in terms of content creation and trying to manage my minimum viable content plan, alongside building a part-time personal brand is I realized that my high energy tasks and the ones I likely would beat myself up over not being able to do or be super self-critical on was the actual task of creating the content. So actually sitting down in front of the camera and talking. My medium energy tasks was the content creation, the strategy, the editing, the admin, planning, all of the things that were just laptop based. And then my low energy tasks were things like researching my ideas, conscious consumption, light organization, and also just like quick wins. So you can implement this system of taking your high energy tasks and knowing what you feel like when you're high, medium, and low energy, and then using that to create little time blocks in your calendar. For example, what I did was that on the Tuesdays and Thursdays that I went into the office, I did not schedule any high energy tasks for those days and also the day in between that day, because I knew I'd be recuperating and trying to recover. So I would preserve my energy based off of what I knew was going to happen on the more high energy corporate days. This allowed me to just put less guilt on myself for having the low energy days, because I'm giving myself permission to actually manage my energy instead of just going gung-ho all week. Now, the other thing to do, which I think is just the key thing to do if you really want to work on your dreams while you're tired, is understanding what the minimum viable version of your dream is. Because the truth is, as long as you're working on something and moving 1% in the right direction every single day, you're going to get there. It's when you stop, it's when you quit, it's when you succumb to those bad feelings, that's when you don't make any progress. That's when you watch your potential fade away. So the minimum viable version of your dream, whatever it is you're working on, what is a task you could do for literally 5 to 15 minutes per day that is related to that dream? Like, decompose your dream into a bare minimum set of tasks and a set of minimum viable actions. Assign those actions for these low energy days or the days that surround high energy corporate days, and track your progress with them. Make yourself stick to those tasks. How can you work on something for 5 to 15 minutes a day that's a minimum viable version of the big bad dream that you want? Make those 5 to 15 minute blocks on your calendar non-negotiable. Treat them like essential parts of your day. You're getting up. When you're tired, you're still doing your skincare, hopefully, and brushing your teeth and getting ready for bed. So you're still making time for the things that are essential. We're going to reframe our approach to our non-negotiable time blocks for these 5 to 15 minute periods of working on our dreams and make them essential. How can we incorporate them into our day? How can we habit stack them with something we're already doing and create a starting ritual for those tasks that removes all the pressure? You might want to work on something for 15 minutes every day, but maybe your starting ritual is just opening up the laptop and starting on it for 30 seconds. We're going to create a really easy entry point into doing that quote unquote hard task, so that you're actually just every single day ticking over that non-negotiable box. How are we going to implement this? Well, I'm going to refer you to the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. When it comes to working on that task, count down from 5 and get started. Don't give yourself the time to talk yourself out of doing the non-negotiable essential time block on your dreams. Future Dev here, ready to show you how to turn this into a sustainable system so that you're not constantly bailing on your own dreams every night after work. Now, the key is to just do one thing on a daily basis that's going to get you closer to your dream life or your dream goal. And guys, I'm telling you from experience, your feelings are always going to get in the way. Your brain is always going to convince you using the best, most creative, most emotional arguments on why you should bail, sit on the couch and rot for that evening. You might genuinely be exhausted. And you know what? There is a line between actually working through pure mental exhaustion, not resting enough, and burning out. And I really implore you to not do those things. Make sure you are incorporating healthy habits. You're looking after your brain, you're looking after your body, but just keep in mind that you are not going to feel ready or motivated 100% of the time. I still don't feel ready and motivated 100% of the time. And I have nowhere near made my goals, but the people who do and the progress I have made so far can be attributed to choosing your potential over your feelings at the time, at least once per day. It's not all day and it's not a huge choice. It doesn't have to be a big task, but it has to just be that one decision to move the needle in the right direction. So I really implore you to think about what your goal is, get really clear on what you want your life to look like. Why is it that you're even working on this dream of yours? Why? And make sure that the one thing you do daily, no matter how small or big it is is directly correlated to that goal. Don't try and productively procrastinate. Don't try and find something else to do in place of a task. Don't try and bed rot, because your dreams don't need the motivation. They need you to just do that one little thing to get a little bit closer. I would love to know what your biggest energy drains are, especially after work. And I want to know if they're similar to what I used to struggle with. I feel like a lot of people are the same, and there's a lot of comfort in that, knowing that you're not always struggling with things by yourself. But remember, if you're watching this video, there's something inside of you that wants to keep going. There's a reason you're watching this video. Despite the tiredness, despite the long days, you want bigger and better for yourself. So this is me telling you, tomorrow night, when you get that inkling to avoid a task that's gonna maybe push you that 1% towards your goal, just spend 30 seconds on it. 30 seconds on it, and then come back to this video and tell me what you spent the 30 seconds on. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next part.